and we're going to start filming a little bit about the history of how Mom and Dad met and what.
Oh, we've covered that already.
I mean, well, actually, I'm getting to the point where I guess part two of what expectations they had about the family and what's going on now with the family.
Uncle Joe.
Well, you're being recorded as you talk, so if you want to say anything more.
That was Mark.
All right, sit down.
You can sit over here.
Sit right over there.
Mark
We'll start
happens to
off.
be the youngest in the family,
Yes.
and he is so shy. Well, he's going to come over here in a few seconds. Go ahead, Teresa, you're on.
So I'd like to start off with my first question. What were the expectations of Mom and Dad before they had the family? Like, how many did they want? Were they agreement in the kids that they wanted? Do they want a certain boys and girls, et cetera, et cetera? Why don't we start off with that question? So what were your expectations before you got married about the family?
Well, you go ahead, Paul.
We talked about children
Don't stop.
in our
No,
courtship, and we
serious.
had no
There's time to
we had
laugh.
no
There's
restrictions.
time to cry.
We
Which-
discussed when we should have kids, and we thought at the age that we were both at, there was no point in us trying to delay that. So that covered that barrier, and Shirley will tell her side.
Well, all I know is that we loved kids. We're both from big families. And I just felt that I'd love a big family. And especially when I came here to Arizona, and I was alone in an apartment, and I was really lonesome. I missed my family. I missed my brothers, my sisters, my mother and father. And I was really so lonesome that I prayed that I'd have a big family and that I'd take all that God would give me. And He's been very good to me. He gave me 8 children, and I'm very happy, and I'm never lonesome now.
Wow. Now let's start off with the first one, Marianne. Now, where were you living when you first?
Let's see, Shirley, we were.
Well, when I first got pregnant with Mary Ann, I think we were living in Country Club apartments.
Yes. Those set of apartments are on 7th Street, about a quarter of a block north of Thomas, actually directly to the west of Country Club. No styles in those days. They were a very popular place, and pretty good set of apartments. Since then they have expanded and changed the style of what it used to be. Had a beautiful swimming pool, a courtyard, and we had the upper apartment upstairs. So then we.
Well, we had Mary Ann. I had Mary Ann while we were still living in Country Club apartments. And then later on, I discovered that we were going to have another baby. And there was only one bedroom. So we said, we better look for a 2-bedroom. So we found a real nice place on East Pinchot. And it was a 2-bedroom. So I fixed up Mary Ann's room, and it was really cute. And there was a double bed in it, and a crib, and a dresser. The double bed was because if we ever had company, you know, there was a place for them to sleep too. And I remember Auntie Mimi and my sister Malcoon, who's your grandma's mother, your great-grandmother. She came out for Mary Ann's baptism too, she and Auntie Mimi. So,
What were some of your memories of this time, you know, your first child?
Yeah. Go into detail on what happened
well,
when you first found out that you were pregnant with Marianne, I guess.
I was real happy about it. I wanted to make sure that everything was all right because my first was a miscarriage, my very first. So I wanted to make sure that everything was all right, that I'd hold the baby and all. and it did work out fine, and so I continued working as a nurse at St. Joseph's up until 8 months pregnant. And then I figured, well, I better rest a month or a few weeks before I have the baby. So, but we're real excited about it. She was due around Easter time, and she was born right on Good Friday. And as usual with, I guess, the first baby, you're in many hours of labor, so I was 16 hours of labor with Mary Ann.
What was Dad doing in that time?
I was in the waiting room.
16 hours?
No, he was in the labor room with me, but at that time, they didn't allow him in delivery room. But you were in the labor room.
Yeah. See, I don't remember that part, but it's possible. But I remember spending a lot of hours in the waiting room. I was, I watched so many programs on TV. Then finally the doctor come and told me, but I could check in with the nurse and see how she was doing.
Oh,
Really?
I was sure
Well,
it was
maybe
doing.
he spent some time in a waiting room, sometime in a labor room, I can't remember.
But the doctor came and told me, and then right after that I went and saw Mom. But Mary Ann, what the nurses did, and you'll see in some of the family album, they put a bunny ears on Mary Ann, a little bunny head, because they did that for all the babies.
Why is that?
Because it was around Easter time,
Oh,
and they had made all these special little hats made out of like crepe paper, and they had bunny ears, and they had little cotton balls on the bunny ears. And when they brought her out to me that day, because during those days, it wasn't just 24 hours in a hospital, you're out. I think I was in like 3 days.
3 days.
And so like, if she was born on Good Friday, then Sunday was Easter. So they may have brought her in Easter Day with that, if I remember correctly. And they were bringing out all the babies with these little hats and the bunny ears.
How
It was
cute.
real cute. And then when Dad came to visit one day, he brought up a little bunny, a musical bunny, for her very first gift. And it was really cute. And
Oh,
I think she still has that bunny.
she probably does.
yeah.
How about Pete? How was that? Was that pretty much the same, or was there a difference in there? Or?
Well, with Peter, like I was saying before, when I first found out I was pregnant with him, we needed a bigger place, so we moved to East Pinchot. And that was really nice, because there was a pool out there, and there were a lot of people that we met. A lot of nice people in that apartment building. Neighbors right next to us were Jewish people, and she'd trade Jewish recipes, and I'd give her my Arabic recipes. But anyways, Pete was born, well, let's see. Oh, okay, after we moved there, then they said they didn't want more than 2
2 kids at Pinchot.
on Pinchot. So we had to find a bigger place then. And that's when we looked into a house,
Yeah, that's when we bought a house.
and.
What was the birth like at that time?
Oh, with Peter? Well, Peter was like half the hours of labor, it was 8 hours labor. And I can't remember what each child was, how much they weighed. I have a baby book for each one of them. And inside there is everything, from their first tooth that came out to their lock of hair, their first haircut.
Mhm. What are some memories of, I remember you talking about Mary Ann in the crib once. You left, I think you were somewhere, and you came back and Mary Ann was, I forgot.
Well, I remember one day when Mary Ann was in the crib on East Pinchot, and the curtains were open, and the neighbor lady was walking by in the alley, and she peeked in, and Mary Ann apparently was standing up in her crib, and the lady she didn't mean to scare Mary Ann, but Mary Ann let out a scream and started crying so hard, because, she didn't know this lady from Adam, and she was waving to her like this in the window, and she got so scared, she just screamed. Now, another thing I remember Mary Ann used to do is, it was around 5 o'clock, and I'd be feeding her, or 5:30, and she'd hear her dad's footsteps coming on in the back. You'd come in through the back, through the
door,
kitchen door, and she'd hear and know his footsteps, and she'd get so excited, and she'd start jumping in her high chair, and she'd go, da-da, da-da, da-da. It was so cute. But anyways, there's a lot of nice memories there, and.
How with Pete? Do you have memories like that with Peter?
Well, with Peter, I remember Auntie Anne Marie came out to help me. So with the first one, Sister Malcoon came out for 2 weeks. She's my grandmother. And she came out to help out. She stayed with Uncle Victor, and then she came over during the day. And with Mary Ann, I remember I had tried to nurse her, but she kept crying all the time. Then I figured, well, she's probably not getting enough. So I called the doctor, and he says, well, nurse her and then give her the bottle. And it just seemed like it was constantly feeding her. Nurse her, then in those days we had to sterilize the bottles. I was so tired. So I says, Paul, it's gonna be one or the other. Let's go to the bottle, you know? So we switched to just giving her the bottle, and she simmered down, and she was happier that way.
Pete, what kind of stories do you have with Pete?
Well, with Peter, I remember Auntie Anne Marie came out when Peter was born. And she was only 17 at the time. She came to help out. But she was pretty interested in going out too and meeting people and all at that age. But she did help me at home. And I remember she and I would laugh like mad when Peter would eat a leg of a chicken. He'd clean that leg off so good. And then, instead of leaving the bone on the high chair, tray, he'd flip it over on the ground when he was done. Like, I'm done. And he'd leave the bone over. Do you remember that, Bob?
Do you remember any stories, Dad? That Pete had done?
Not about Pete. We were in Pinchot then, right, when Pete was born?
Yeah, we were in Pinchot, and, no, I think we were at the house
We
when
were
Peter.
okay.
Yeah, I was 8 months pregnant with
When?
Peter when we moved into Pinchot. Because there was this man that Paul knew that he had come to the house to help us clean the house. He was an older man, and he belonged to or he went into an order later on in New Mexico.
What kind of stories would
Do you
you
remember his name?
No.
Yeah, he was an older man. Later on, he died now in a car accident.
Okay, yes. He was with Eddie Doherty. He helped him out.
Yeah.
He came from Winslow. He was a
Uh-huh.
retired railroad man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't remember
Yeah.
his name.
Yes, I do. I remember him.
So what kind of stories
But I
would you
remember
say-
him making a comment saying, now, why'd you want to move when you're 8 months pregnant? You know, he says, you can't even do anything to clean this house. I says, I know, I'm too big to do anything. I was out like a balloon. So I remember he was cleaning my stove for me, and helping out that way. So, I mean, I had Peter, and Peter was a happy baby. Marion would tease him like mad. Of course, his first word would be, go away. I never forgot that. Go away. It's one of the first, after Mama, Dada, go away was next. Because Marianne would pick on him and pick on him.
Do you remember any stories, Dad?
Gee, I can't remember about Pete.
How about me?
I remember when I was moving the furniture in, and remember we were moving the TV, and Mary had slammed the door.
I'm sorry, Daddy, come with the big TV.
She slammed the door. You know, kids do that, you know.
Yeah.
Slam the door, and I got the TV in my hand. It's a console, so it's a pretty big, pretty heavy thing. And she put a nick in the door, Mary Ann.
She came like, ooh.
I gave her a love tap after that. And I think we were painting the wall. Uncle Johnny was helping me. And who put their hand in the paint? Was that Peter or was that Mary Ann?
I can't remember.
What happened?
We were painting the wall in
Pinchot?
at Almeria. Almeria. And I think it was Peter put his hand in the paint and put it in his mouth. You know how they suck their
Yeah.
fingers? I think that was Peter. And we washed his mouth, just taking the sink and just rinse his mouth out real good. So we learned not to leave anything on the floor or keep the kids around. And they crawl around pretty fast and walk around, and you're constantly keep their eyes open. It was a 3-bedroom. the back bedroom was closed, because Peter and Mary Ann stayed in the second bedroom. And the third bedroom was a storage. And then, after that, Teresa came, and,
That's
did we-
Teresa.
That's Teresa.
Thank you. Any stories about me?
Well, when Teresa was born, let's see, who came out when Teresa was born? I think Sito came out. My mother came out when
Yeah, that's right.
Teresa was born. I was wondering when she'd come out from one of the babies. Well, she came out when Teresa was born. And she helped me out a lot, and she took care of Peter and Mary Ann. And in fact, we have a picture of her holding Peter and your mother holding Mary Ann. It's two little pictures, and we've had it framed for years, and it's both of the grandmothers sitting there holding each one.
So how
And that's when we took it, when you were born,
oh,
out in the backyard in Elmaria. But Teresa was born, and she seemed a little more delicate than the other baby. Her bones seemed tinier, and
Small baby.
yeah. And one thing we remember about when Teresa, we brought Teresa home, and she wasn't even 7 days old. And let's see, oh, one night, I don't know what it was. Oh,
She
we
just-
didn't
she
put the pad up
Because she
around the
wasn't
crib.
crawling yet.
Yeah, she wasn't moving
Well,
around,
she
she was
wasn't rolling.
tiny, and she wasn't doing much, when they're first born. So we didn't put the protective pad around the little porta crib that we had. And something told Dad to get up in the middle of the night, and he found you with your head right between the two bars, your little head just hanging right over, and he quick picked you up, and he put the little padding around. Yeah, and I almost died when
scary.
he told me, yeah.
good.
It was real scary. So from that day on, we put that mattress pad up, well, whatever, I forgot what they even call those pads they put around now. But bumper pads, that's what they were called. And you got to be very frisky. You started moving around real fast, you'd turn over, and you were a lot of fun, you grew fast. Well, one thing I remember, the only way you can sleep, I remember, you dig your nose down into the mattress. You remember that?
So she has a big nose.
And I said, gee, her nose is gonna get flat. She keeps digging down like that. And then she'd
Head
hold
first.
her little head up like this and look at us,
Yeah, Bob.
It'd be so cute when they first start learning how to put their head up, because it just bobbed there, because their muscles aren't that strong yet.
What kind of personality did I have at that time?
Well, at that time,
Yeah, was there like something?
no, because usually you don't smile for, I guess, for a few weeks, before they.
I remember Dad saying something. I used to crunch my nose or something. When I used to go like that or something.
Oh, yeah, she'd
Yeah. Wrinkle up
make
your
make a
nose.
face with wrinkling her nose, remember
Yeah.
that? Then the porta crib, was in the den.
Yeah.
And so we noticed when Peter and Mary Ann wanted to see you, they grabbed the crib. And a couple times we noticed the crib was just about on the way to.
Oh my God.
So what we did, we tied it 2-3 times to the knobs of the den where we kept
Okay.
the den. And then we started to raise everything up off the floor. So Mary Ann and Peter couldn't have, everything was way up high above their reach. And we'd have this couch in the den, and they use that as a jumping ground. They'd be
How's
jumping.
that?
And we had a kitchen, the booth in the kitchen.
Yeah.
You ever saw those
I remember
pictures?
the booth.
Oh, that was great for the kids.
Red booth,
Yeah, the
Yeah,
red
red
table
table.
with a beige booth.
And then Mary Ann did the dishes. We got her a little stool, and she would do the dishes. And Peter had a chore, and as you grew up, each one of you had something to do.
Whatever happened, I remember pumpkin pie. That story comes up in my mind when I was little. Something happened. Will you explain that?
Well, when you were sitting in a high chair one day, it was like the day before Thanksgiving, and I always try to get all my pumpkin pies done. I'd make about 6 of them. And I'd try and get them done the day before Thanksgiving, because that day there was too much to do. So one day I took one out and I put it on top of the stove, and it was cooling. And then I put the others, other areas, you know. All of a sudden I turn around, and you were in your high chair, but you had gotten at the pie and knocked it right over. I said, oh, there goes the pumpkin pie, you know. So that's all right, I had made enough.
What were Teresa's first words?
Teresa's, well, usually they're mama or dada.
Mhm.
Those are usually the first words.
Now, did Teresa bother Peter as much?
Well, I'll tell you the truth, Peter and Teresa got very close when they were little. They'd hold hands, they'd talk to each other. Where Mary Ann and Peter, Mary Ann would be the big teaser to Peter. But Teresa and Peter were buddies. And that's how they've been right along. And I remember when we drove cross country, we had 3 kids. And Teresa and Peter, we had in car seats, and going cross country with little kids that age, like 2 and 3 years old. That's many hours sitting in that little seat. Well, a couple times I'd turn around, they'd be holding hands. Just holding hands. It was so cute.
Did
I'd say, Paul, look at her holding hands.
did I like school when I was little?
Oh, when you started kindergarten, you cried and cried and cried. And I said, Teresa, you can't do that. You're getting big now. You have to go in. And it's a nice teacher. Mrs. Peroni's a very nice teacher. And she, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I says, well, your sister and brother are there, and you'll like it, you know. But every time it came time to go to school, she'd cry. She'd cry even in class. So one day, what did the teacher tell you?
If I cried again, she was gonna slap me. And so the next day I cried and she hit me.
She really did hit you?
Yep.
So did you ever stop crying?
No.
You still cry.
She still, to this day,
To this
she still
day, I
gets
went to my
butterflies.
classes and I cried. What do you remember from your dad?
We pick them up over at the Creighton, isn't that right?
Well, yeah, they'd get out, they went
That was
kindergarten.
there.
Yeah. And I had more kids at home, and, or else I'd just have a baby or something. Sometimes Uncle Joe would go and get you. Do you remember going up to Creighton and
Yeah.
picking the kids up?
Thanks.
Yeah.
And also Mr.
Al,
Al. Remember
Al,
Al?
Egoff?
Egoff, yeah.
he-
He would pick the kids
Mary
up
Ann,
sometimes. Mary Ann
Mary Ann
was, yeah.
Yeah, it was Mary Ann. And there was always one of the families we worked with,
Yeah.
that emergency that we would have your kids picked up. But there was a few times that we got there late and the kids would be in that room crying
In the office.
Somebody,
It was
Joanne.
me.
Joanne was in kindergarten, and something happened, I couldn't get down there at 11:30 to pick her up. And she was smart enough, though, to walk from the kindergarten, and she found where the office was, and called up for someone to pick her up. She was very, very smart.
I'll never forget that because I remember waiting on the brick staircase.
Yeah.
And it was all cement and it was so big, and Mrs. Peroni left, my kindergarten teacher.
Yeah, she should have left.
And I usually Dad comes after work to pick me up, and he didn't come this time. And I'll never forget. I just started crying and crying, and then I realized it didn't get me anywhere. So and nobody was around to hear me cry. So I remember Uncle Joe coming and picking me up, and I got home and Mom said, "You could spank Daddy for not picking you up." So I got to spank him.
What other stories do you remember from Joanne?
Well, let's talk about my birth in the beginning.
Well, I
Oh,
know
yeah.
when you were carrying, when Joanne was in your stomach, she was very active.
I
You
really
thought it was
thought,
a boy.
yeah, I really thought she was gonna be a boy.
I still do.
Moving all the time, all night long, all day long, jumping, moving. I says, Paul, this gotta be a boy. We had a boy's name, We thought, what, Joe?
Joseph.
We're gonna name
Joseph.
Joseph.
Yeah.
And,
We were so sure it was a boy.
yeah, and she shocked us. See, in those days, they couldn't tell if it's gonna be a girl or boy. Now they do ultrasounds and they can tell. But, we were
So
surprised.
when Mom had you, I really had I said, are you sure? Are you real sure?
So how did
Because
you?
we had only picked one name, because we were sure that it was going to
Oh
be a
my
boy.
gosh.
So that's why we switched it from Joseph to Joanne.
Wow.
How'd you get my
What?
name? Sorry.
Oh, Teresa?
Yeah.
Well, Daddy was always fond of Teresa Davis, his first cousin. And I thought Teresa was a beautiful name, after St. Teresa. So we decided on that.
Teresa Nabiha.
Nabiha.
Yeah,
Because
and we named you after your middle name, after Siti, your grandma.
Mhm.
Dad's
And
That's
you,
Mulaney.
Mulaney, that was.
Dad's
That would be
grandmother.
your grandmother.
Yes, that would be great grandmother.
My great grandmother.
Yeah.
Mulaney Holmesy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say something.
So go on with it. So I thought I was gonna be a boy, and then it turned out to be a girl, and you had to call me Joanne. And then what was my life after like that?
No,
You're never the same.
Never the same.
You
Yeah,
had
we
all
didn't,
curly hair. In fact, all the kids had curly hair.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody had curly hair. And yours was light. You had light brown hair. You were fair-skinned. You and Jennifer were the most fair-skinned. But Joanne, when you were a little girl, you were only about 2 years old, you got chickenpox. And you had such a severe case of chickenpox, you would sit on that green sofa and just bang and bang and bang. Her thighs were covered with chickenpox. You can put your hand right over it and feel the
The
heat
heat.
coming out.
Is
Wow.
that right?
You
Yeah.
had it so bad, and I tried everything. I'd call the doctor. He said soak her in baking soda, I think it was, in a tub, you know. And I do that. And I said, "You feel better, Joanne?" "Oh, it hurts." You know, you're little, you know. And but you had the worst case of chickenpox than all the other kids, because everybody would get it every 2 weeks. Somebody else would come to it. It felt like a hospital all over again, you know, private duty for all these little kids. But,
I used to rock a lot.
Yeah,
oh,
I'll
did
tell
you rock?
By this time now, we were using the back bedroom. That was the third bedroom. And we put in there 2 beds. We had
Two bunk
Two
beds
bunk beds
and a crib
and a crib.
for 5.
And now we started to separate the boys from the girls. We put the 3 girls in the back and the boys. Peter was in his own room, right?
Right.
And then the 3 girls were in the back. And Joanne had the crib. She was still in the crib.
Uh-huh.
And she was a rocker. And at night, we'd always hear this rocking. And she rocked so bad that the screws that hold the crib all came loose. And the bed fell down.
Are you serious?
So I remember getting up and fixing it, getting it. And the
But then,
rocking.
did you take the wheels off or something?
Oh, I took the wheels off.
You tried everything.
Everything. And then at night, now your head, right here, there was like a little, like
Lump.
a lump right across here from banging on the headboard. So
Of the crib.
of the crib,
You banged
the
your
board,
head.
of the
Oh my
board.
God.
She
So
not
I
only
was-
rocked, but banged the head.
So I got concerned. So what I did, I found, you know, in the couch, they've got this end like this. I found one cushion that fit between the rails. So I put that in on the one side. Then you got smart. You went to the other side. So I fixed that up. I went and got another cushion and put it on the other side.
So she wouldn't hurt her head.
Oh
But you still rock. You'd hit the cushion, but still rock.
And it wouldn't make as loud a noise at night.
my. Yeah.
I could
So
sleep.
you'd calm down, you'd sleep for a while, then you'd get up and decide to bang again. Boom, boom, boom. And you used to make a lot of noise before Dad put the cushions in. God,
But
was
it didn't bother you.
unbelievable.
It didn't have
And
no
then
effect on
I'd
you.
feel your little muscles, thigh
Oh.
muscles, like a rock from the exercise and all the
It's like, you know, you're on your hands in your knees
And just go.
and
back
just
to-
rock it,
Yeah.
just rock it.
And then, as you're starting to get a little older, you'd sit on the sofa, and you're
And
just
like
bang,
this.
back and forth, banging back and forth. Just keep going, active, like you
Were there
couldn't sit still.
any stories that you had of Joanne that you remember clearly?
Yeah,
Like
I remember once, I says, "Where's Joanne? I haven't seen her for 2 minutes." And when they're toddler stage, you have to watch them every minute. So I ran to the bathroom. You had unrolled a whole roll of toilet paper, had it all over everything, and I thought it was so cute. I went and got a camera and took a picture of her. It was really cute, but I remember that. I remember the time the dresser fell on Nikki, and you were sitting on a bed crying like mad, and I ran to see what happened, and here I see this little hand underneath the dresser, and I lift up the whole thing, and Nikki was under there, was smashed.
I'll never forget. It was because we were playing hide and go seek, and I decided to hide on top of the dresser. I know it's not a good place to hide. I hid on top of the green dresser. I think it was the
It
green
was a
one.
green dresser.
And Nick goes and he sees me and he starts climbing, pulling out the drawers and climbing on it. Well, when he was climbing on it, it started leaning forward. And next thing you know, I jump off on the bed and it falls on him.
So she saves herself,
And I didn't know what to
he
do,
gets
so
pinned under the
yes.
dresser.
And all I remember is just crying and crying, and Mom came in there.
And he had a cut on his nose, and to this day you can see a little scar. And
That's because when we would be playing pots and pans in the kitchen, I would say, "Pull it out, Nick," and he'd pull out his stitches. Remember? And he'd keep
you
on
would
pulling.
tell him to pull it
Well,
out.
we both. We'd play and then we'd get bored and we'd be like, "What's that?" You know, and pull it out. And so he kept on pulling it out. I remember.
Yeah, I right away took him down, and he had to have stitches there. I don't know, about 4 or 5 stitches. And then when I bring him home, like the next day they'd be playing and everything's fine. And all of a sudden I'd see the black stitches were gone. I said, "What happened to your stitches?" You know, and I'd see them in his hand.
Oh my God.
So I had to take him back down again. We had put another set. And it happened again. He kept pulling them out, you know. He was a little toughie. I think he was a little toughie. But anyways, get back to Joanne. Any other thing?
Well, I remember breaking a plate over Joanne's head.
Me?
And I remember once she did something wrong,
Oh.
and I grabbed her upside down. I took her to the bathroom and spanked her.
It was because I was swinging. Nick, he was a little boy, little baby still, and I was on the swing, and I would put him on my lap and swing back and forth. And then he'd fall down and cry, and I just, I keep on swinging. And Dad said, "Don't do that." And then I said, "Okay." So I put him back on my lap, and we kept on swinging. And then he fell again, and Dad said, "Don't do that," Third time came, and I was swinging, and he fell, and I tried to keep him quiet. I was like, "No, don't cry." The next thing you know, I'll never forget, Judy Ann Gideon was at our house, watching something. Dad goes, "Come over here," and I was like, "Oh no, I'm in trouble." I will never forget that. Yeah, I was so scared that I wet Nick's bed. I'll never forget that. Oh.
Why did I break the plate over your head? Do you remember that?
I don't remember that. Did you? That was Jenny.
Was that Jennifer?
Yeah,
Sure.
that was Jen over there in the house. I remember one time I was singing. Do you remember when we were doing Christmas cards? This is when we were older, in the new house. But we were singing, and I was going through high school, like puberty, and I was singing, we must increase our bust. And I went like this, and I would put my arms back, leaning on the chair, and I had put it in between a doorway. I'll never forget that. And Nick shut his door, and my hand was right in the middle
And
of
the
it.
door jam.
And I screamed, and my scream
Not
Was a
like
healthy
anyone
scream.
else.
was a healthy scream. And I'll never forget, I screamed. Dad came running out to find out what was wrong. When Nick opens up the door, my hands were just completely
opened the door.
crushed. you open the door? And I'll never forget, because nobody knew why I was screaming. I was leaning back and I just was screaming. I'll never forget that. I got in trouble for screaming.
Oh my god.
But let's see, Christina cut her lip and had stitches?
Yeah.
No, excuse me,
Kristen
was
cut-
Mary Ann.
Mary Ann, when she
Mary
was
Ann.
little,
Yeah, her tongue.
she was only about a year old, and she fell and she cut her tongue. And we brought her to the hospital.
Emergency room.
Emergency room. No, the first time we didn't. You said, oh, it'll just heal itself, remember? I said, well, Paul, I think it might open up again, you know, so we waited a while, all of a sudden, boom, she started hemorrhaging again. I said, let's bring her right down. So we brought her down, and they wouldn't let us stay in the room there, an emergency room. But I remember, they stitched up her tongue.
Yeah.
Usually they don't stitch up a tongue, but with her case, they had to because it was so deep. She had, her tooth had gone into her tongue, and it hit an artery.
Oh my goodness.
So, anyways, so she had to have her tongue stitched up.
Did Pete ever like, get any stitches like on his toe with an axe or anything?
That's at Almeria House, yeah, when he was playing with the Holmes.
We had neighbors, the Holmeses.
Little rough kids. And I don't know the whole complete scene, but he came over, or Mrs. Holmes brought him over, I think,
Carrie Ann.
carried him over with a bleeding toe. And we had to put stitches
Well,
on that.
What happens, he had, the axe had cut in between his big toe and the next big toe. And when he came home, he says, look all the rice. Because the inside of the tissue to him looked like rice coming out of his toes, you know? It was the skin, you know, and anyways, he had to have stitches too.
But then the neighbor next door to us had that dog that was always charging Joanne, remember that?
The McGuire
McGuire
family
kids.
had a German Shepherd dog, and every time I put the kids in the backyard to play,
He'd come charging.
he would come charging, like ready to attack the kids, and barking like mad. And it came to a point where, God, I mean, it was terrible. And we told the neighbor, and they still didn't do anything about it. And she'd come screaming in the house every single time. And I think that's how she sort of developed the fear of dogs.
And we sprayed the dog once with the
With
hose
water,
to
yeah,
try
with
to-
the hose.
That didn't work.
I know, we used to have that play pool in the
Yes,
backyard.
that's right.
And a sandbox. No, just a play
We
pool.
had a sandbox too, remember on the,
Yeah.
back in the
entire-
bedroom by the refrigeration unit, we had a sandbox back there?
Yep.
You guys would play there by the hours.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
remember.
I remember the sandbox.
Yeah,
And I remember birthday parties in the back porch.
yeah.
And you used to have a little high chair. I don't know who was sitting in it. All I remember is balloons everywhere and a high chair and Teresa dressed up in a clown outfit. I think those are two different stories.
Remember I dressed up as a clown for Halloween, was it? You dressed up
Yeah,
as a clown?
yeah.
Remember that green
You
thing
had-
you made?
You had to wear something for school that day.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
okay.
said, gee, what can we use, what can we use? And that's when we were getting a lot of material from that
From the
place. There was a
Across the
fabric,
alley.
yeah, fabric store across the alley, and they'd throw all their scraps in the big
I mean, they were good
garbage
scraps.
container.
Quarter of a bolt, tenth of a
Good.
bolt left over.
So this one material was a polka dot. So I said, gee, I'll make her into a clown. So I made like a big bow of polka dot and put it there. And I put polka dots on her face, big round polka dots. And then I had like a party hat. So I put that on and had a ball on top of that. And she looked so cute as a little clown.
How about let's get to Nick. Tell me something.
And I want to tell you, each child, and all children are suck their fingers. And each one was a little different. I'm trying to remember, we would distinguish that. Mary Ann was a thumb.
Mary Ann sucked her thumb until about 8 years old.
Yeah.
And her teeth were really coming out.
Yeah. And then Peter, was Peter the two fingers? Or
Peter used 2 fingers.
2 fingers.
Yeah.
And then Teresa.
And Nikki. Or
Nikki was-
Teresa used her fingers,
Teresa was one finger.
yeah. And I'd look at that finger and it looked so flat. And so look at her fingers getting so flat from sucking all the time.
Yeah.
And then Joanne, what'd Joanne do? She rocked.
Well, we'd ask the doctor, gee, we're concerned about this thumb sucking and finger sucking. And he said, oh, don't worry about it. By the time they get to college, they won't be sucking their fingers anymore. And then I remember we noticed Marianne, but on our second visit to the doctor, after Marianne was born, we noticed that one of her ears was
A little bit
bit
smaller than the other.
And we were a little concerned. And as Shirley and I are in there talking to Dr. Keefery, we're looking at Dr. Keefery's ears.
And they were gigantic. And one was a little bigger than the other.
And he started to tell us, he was a very kind doctor. Dr. Keefery was, I think, the tops for pediatrics. He was well respected in town and had a sense of humor, and he just knew how to care for the parents and the children. So he let us know that this is very, not unusual that one leg is longer than another, or one eyebrow could be a little bit bigger than other. But we were looking for perfection. We wanted the perfect child.
But you're talking about sucking thumbs. Well, Nicky would have one finger in his mouth, the other finger up the nose, and another finger in his ear. I mean, if he had any more openings,
And they're all going at the same time. To the fact that I remember Nick, he would entertain people, and he learn how to push his earlobe inside his ear and take the upper part and do the same thing, and keep Ben there and show it to people.
And
this
he
was
was
a
so
special.
proud of that.
He
That
was
was
very
his
proud.
special.
That was his thing.
I remember that.
And it wouldn't pop back out, it'd just stay in there, and everybody just looking.
Anytime we had company, he'd do that.
Yeah, every time. Then I remember they would have the children mass over at St. Agnes, and Sister Leanne. What's her name?
And Regina,
No, the one that
Sister Jamesita,
no, the one that was
Cecily.
at St. Agnes now. She came back. She's a heavier set nun. And she
oh,
was the one that,
Sister Lorianne.
Lorianne, Sister Lorianne, and she was kind of in charge of these masses. And during folk mass, all the kids would come, but Nicky was, boy, he was a tough one to keep in place or keep in position. And she'd always remark about him, boy, he's going to be a very active baby. And that personality keeps with you all along. Too bad we didn't have VCRs or movies to give you a good shot of one during the whole day. You'd see that continuous personality develop.
How funny.
So you really see it like when we were little, like me just constantly.
And a small scope, you see it, all right?
Yeah.
But that's the same person, It's just enlarged as you get older, that same personality.
Now Teresa again, I remember she got a nickname, Tiny, and I think I sort of nicknamed her that because she was the tiniest, I think you
Petite.
weighed the least of all the kids, and you were very petite, your fingers and everything, it was so cute. So we started calling you Tiny.
How about me, Yo-Yo?
Well, Yo-Yo, you were nicknamed Yo-Yo because you were like a yo-yo.
You rocked.
Active, moving, unbelievable. So that's how you got the name Yo-Yo. You're like a yo-yo, always bouncing.
What would you say is good advice for us when we're having kids? What advice would you give us?
Well, first find a nice husband. That's the first thing. Then I'd get married. And then if both of you think it's appropriate, then have children. Don't wait too long,
Yeah.
because there's only a time span for enjoying children, and you want to really raise them when you're young. All right. So there's a time factor in there, and that window is very important, and it's there by you know, the natural law, by God's law. So, you know, that's when it happens. But most important is having a husband
Yeah.
that wants children. So, you mean advice in how to raise children, or,
Yeah.
you know, it's a very natural, instinctive quality that exists in women. It's so natural, it's a craving. So, and you'll find yourself blossoming when you have children. You'll do things you never thought you'd do.
Well, do you think we'd be copying some of, like,
Very much so.
You think we'll be saying the
Not
same?
so much as saying copying. What Mom did was was Mom's, you know, by her nature. And that's the same nature you have.
well, what advice would you say bringing up kids? Would you say?
Well, you bring them up with firm love, and that's the best way. You know, kids are children, and it's love that makes them what they are.
And if you have a chance to stay home and enjoy them, stay home, enjoy them.
If you have that chance.
It's just
It's
wonderful
special.
to see how they grow, and they do grow fast. The first year, they double their weight, their birth weight, they
Wow.
double. They go from a purely vegetative state to a state of walking within a year.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Right? So
You
that's a
see,
big
in
change.
that 1 year, you'll see them, all of a sudden, they start perking up, they turn over, then they get on their knees, then they start rocking, then they start crawling, then they stand up, hold on to a table, and then from there, they let go and start walking, all this in 1 year. Also, their teeth start coming in, so many things happen in that
Wow.
first year of life, so enjoy it.
Yes. Wow.
You know, we could tell you, you know, incident upon incident, how you crawled. Some crawled forward, some crawled backwards. Some would roll over one way, couldn't get on back the other side.
Remember,
And,
who was the one that was afraid to dirty their knees?
Oh, they all, I think that,
Teresa?
I
I
think it
can't
was-
remember.
Wow.
Yeah, I
Instead of
saw-
crawling on the knees,
That was a
Oh, yeah,
hand.
that was me.
Yeah, that
they
was
go
true.
like a frog, you know, to move. They didn't want to dirty their
On the-
knees.
I remember, I saw
Wow.
a video of that.
Go on to Nick.
Yeah.
What I'd like to do is, you know, we spent enough time on this now.
Yeah.
Why don't we, I think it's more fun when you have the
Have
kids
kids,
here, even though the other three are in the room. I think we can maybe divide, now we already picked out 4 of them, even though Peter and Teresa and Mary Ann aren't here. We should have the younger set as an independent set.
We could do that.
And don't you think that's a
Yeah.
good idea, Joe?
Yeah,
sounds
I
great.
like that. I have a couple more questions
All right,
about
go
this
right
older
ahead.
set. Okay, just concerning with me, because of course, I'm gonna be video, you know, my grandchildren and my children will be seeing this. What, I was fidgety and just was I always in pots and pans, you know?
Oh, yeah, you'd open up the cabinets, but I kept one area just for you. It was all the pots and pans that, I mean, I used them, but they weren't my favorites, you know. So I figured, well, she gets in there, let her enjoy them. And they'd all come out every day. Out comes the pots and pans.
Well, did Joanne and I get along when we were little?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. And then we had it outside, we had a swing set. Remember the
Oh,
swing set?
yeah.
The
Oh,
one
yes.
swing and the one tire,
Mm-hmm.
and then we had the bars, the
Yes.
crawling
The
bars.
yellow
That
one.
was nice.
And you kids, oh, I remember you'd be out there by the hours,
Yeah.
out there.
I remember the mulberry tree outside too. Mom used to make mulberry pie out there. Or no,
Well, we
mulberry.
planted that, the boy next door, I think he came up, Mike McGuire, and he helped to plant that mulberry tree. It was a little one. And then it started getting bigger and bigger.
Then Mr. Kirkus, George Kirkus used to come in the winter and help us in the yard. And he
Yeah.
always, he took care of that yard, beautiful. He planted trees and a little vegetable garden.
Right against the stone wall, he'd plant a garden. He'd plant a few tomato plants for me, some green beans one year. those Chinese pea pods he planted.
yeah, I
It was
remember
really
that.
nice.
That's so interesting that he would, did he have a yard himself?
In his own, well, he was just wintering here.
Oh.
He lived in Houghton, Michigan,
Oh,
and
I see.
him and his wife Tamimi, they would come to our
I
house.
remember that.
And they loved you kids very much. As a matter of fact, George helped Marianne, carry Marianne out of the hospital. And in those days, the mother wasn't allowed to carry the baby out. She was, the hospital policy, you're in a wheelchair. And they take you right to the car, and you get in the car, and they'll hand you the baby. So we got pictures, you'll see movie pictures of George Kirkish carrying, holding the baby, and I was bringing all the stuff that they gave us from the hospital, the flowers and all that. That was interesting.
That's neat.
Wow.
I remember Teresa and I always playing Barbie dolls.
Yeah.
Just,
Do you remember that?
do you remember that? I remember we just go in that back room. This is after
That's
the
right.
wedding.
Yeah.
In the back room in Meadowbrook, and take every vase, every plant, pot, we didn't have Barbie dolls.
Wait a minute,
We
you
had-
said Meadowbrook, did you mean Elmira?
No, I meant Elmira.
Okay.
Meadowbrook also, but Leanne Weber, our next door neighbor, had a Barbie doll house, and we wanted one so bad. But you would say, be creative, make your own. And we'd put together houses, plates, and out of just things that you would not imagine. And we'd make beds out of Kleenex boxes. Do you remember that?
Yeah, or hot pots. That would be the table.
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
the little hot, what do you call it? What do you call the
Hot
little-
plates.
Hot plates.
Yes.
And that would be the table and chairs out of Kleenex boxes, and then we'd leave it all there.
And, oh, I remember when we had a garage sale. Do you remember that little table? We had a garage sale with maybe 6 or 7 pots and pans in front of Elmira House. And nobody came by. So we went knocking on all our neighbors' doors, soliciting, for them to buy it. And Mrs. Weber didn't want to say no. So she said, okay. So we sold her all our stuff. And we'd go over to her house and use all our stuff. I'll never forget that. My little white little stool. It was
Do you
just
remember
like
the
this big.
story you told us, Teresa?
No.
You
Oh,
remember that?
we made that up.
For the longest time, we believed Teresa Nabika Davis. She must have been about 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And one day, her girlfriend
younger.
and Teresa, they cried and cried. What's the matter? We saw a naked man in the alley rolling down. And we had that bad place back there.
Porno house.
It was a New View porno place, and I was always scared. But I said, oh my God, you never know what's gonna be in that alley. But we had a big fence around there, and the door was always locked and all. But as they got older, they were able to climb over, open the door, and go out there, and stuff. So I got so scared. I said, should we call the police? What should we do? I called the neighbor, and we both talked it over. We said, God, I don't know. My daughter told me the same thing. So for time went on, we kept quizzing them. Yeah. Then the man had nothing on at all, and it went on for a long time. That's why when I hear these stories
Yes.
of priest molestation, this was never a true story, and we didn't know it for about 2-3 years later.
Yeah.
So now when we hear today, this day and age, about priests who are molesting younger kids, you wonder if these stories aren't prefabricated and exaggerated, and a lot of these priests may be innocent. Just like one story that a priest was telling us today, that there's a priest in there being held for 10 years and he's innocent.
But it's easy to. I remember when I did that, it was almost like a testing. I wanted to test if they believe me. And then I remember being caught that they believe me. Now what do? Well, I'll stick with it. You don't think of the consequences, like what could have happened if that was like a priest maybe, or if I would have said another name or something like that. An innocent person. It was just one of those things, and I still remember that exactly. And Leanne and I, we were creative. We talked it all about it. It was almost like nothing. Kids. I remember that.
Dad, you talked about, this is a little different, but you talked about a rubber band thing you'd play.
With all the
Yeah.
kids. Well, I think each one of you, I want to teach you to keep your hands off of the hot stove. And I would test you first with a rubber band to play a game. You know, I would hold the rubber band and I would leave it go just before the tension would get on it.
Yeah.
Then we would stretch it a little further and I'd leave it go and you'd get a little sting, you see?
Yeah.
And I did it again, and the third time you wouldn't play anymore. All right. Then I would take you to the stove and I would show you it's hot, don't put your hand there. And while it's on, you let you feel the heat from it. You know, now you've got the sting from the rubber band,
Yeah.
you know that hurts. And I'm telling you, that same hurt will happen at the stove.
And you comprehended that.
Yeah,
Skinner.
I think you got the message from it.
Yeah.
No one ever, to my knowledge, nobody ever put their hand on that hot stove.
Wow.
While you kids were little, Dad would have his office
Oh yeah, I remember
at the
that.
house on Elmeria. And,
In the utility room.
yeah, and when I'd have to go to the grocery store, I'd pull all you kids for naps, and I'd quick run down for an hour and come right back.
Yeah, I was home, you know, I just leave the
Yeah.
door open, I could hear.
Yeah.
But I remember one time, I needed groceries so bad, and Dad couldn't do it, he had to go somewheres or something. And I had 3 of you at the time, so I said, I don't care, I'm gonna go with the 3 of them. I was brave. So I put the 3 of them in a wagon. And I remember we were in the grocery store, Bash's, and I figured I'll just get a few things, because I couldn't put too much more in, there's already 2 kids in the basket. So I put a couple groceries in, and as we're going around the corner, one of the kids, I don't know if it was you, Joanne, or Teresa, one of them noticed a pole filled with toys. Filled.
No.
So one of them leaned over to grab it. The whole thing falls down, the carriage falls over.
Oh my
And they're screaming, ah! Everybody comes running. I said, oh my God. I quick picked the carriage, picked them up, put them back in, picked up the pole with all the toys on it. I never forgot that. I said, that's it. Never again with 3 of you guys.
I remember one story that Pete was in church and the priest was asking a question, must have been one of the children's masses, and the priest was saying, now what kind of gifts did we get at Christmas? And he meant gifts as in love and friendship, things like that, and Pete raised his hand and he goes, I got a Tonka truck. And the whole church just looked like they were sure to laugh or what. It was so funny. Remember he played the trumpet too.
Yeah, Peter started, when he was a Cub Scout, we said, gee, it'd be nice if he played some instrument. What do you like, Peter? This trumpet, you know? Or, yeah, trumpet. So we started giving him lessons. And we were so proud that he started playing a little song, you know? And when the Cub Scouts the leader heard that he was able to play a song, well, at one of the awards night, Peter got up. He started playing his trumpet. And he was all off tone. But we were so proud that he got up there and did it, that everybody clapped. The whole place clapped.
And during Mass, during the consecration, you know, they say the body of Christ, the blood of Christ, and the kids would hear the word blood. Blood! And you'd hear that, you know,
No, they'd say the body of Christ. They'd say, where's the body? Where's the body? Body!
I remember Marianne and I were in ballet lessons together, and I'll never forget I had to go to the bathroom so bad. And Mom, I saw you there, you were waiting for me, and we all carried roses and stuff as we were dancing. I had to go to the bathroom so bad. Do you remember that?
I remember that you told me about it. Go ahead.
And I was dancing, and our whole dance class, we'd all move like in one spot, and we'd all do turns at the same time, go to the next spot. and I was in the back going, oh, because I couldn't turn. And I remember my mom comes out and goes, do you have to go to the bathroom? I go, no, because I didn't want to have to leave my class. And afterwards, oh my God, I must have just, it was so funny. And then I ran to the bathroom, I went to the bathroom, but
Yeah.
I'll never forget that.
I remember you wanted each one of us in something, like ballet, music, something, you know?
Well, you all should have something other than just schoolwork, something that you would enjoy and have fun with.
And I always wanted a piano. And I remember my first organ. I'll never forget that. I remember begging, I wanted a piano. I remember going to the piano stores and going, piano, And I remember getting an organ and playing for you. I think you were sick one day. This image of Mom lying down and replaying this organ. I don't even know what the sounds were, it probably wasn't very relaxing. But I remember just loving it and just being able to create music. I don't know how I did it. Do you remember anything from that?
Do you remember
No,
our
not so
piano lessons? We took piano lessons.
Nick Page.
Nick Page.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
that's when they first started piano lessons, and there was this big, heavy guy who was teaching piano, and I heard he was real good. So I'd send them, I think it was once a week, Teresa and Joanne together. And it was only like for an hour. But one day, Teresa started crying. I said, what's the matter? I don't want to go there anymore. I hate it. I don't want to go there. I don't like him.
I remember that. He was
He's
so mean.
mean.
He was really. Do you remember our gymnastics lessons that we used to go to?
Yeah.
You send us on the city bus, and we'd go
Back
down.
in the olden days.
Yep. Nowadays you don't see that anymore.
No, you went on the city bus that time, 'cause Mom
You
was
were
sick.
sick.
Yeah, you were sick.
That was in
That's right.
1983,
Oh,
and I got
yeah.
real sick. I was
Yeah.
real sick. It took me like 2-3 years to get over it. It was bad.
I have
And
a
then how about the time that they went to the Y camp?
Oh
And
yeah,
the
YMCA.
Oh,
well,
when I
who's,
was, I was due to have Mark. And I was due to have Mark, and he was number 8, and I says, gosh, I don't want to be a martyr. I gotta do something with these kids, I know what to do. I mean, here you're in your last month, and you're due any day, and you're running around after the little kids and everything, and so I said, the YMCA. So I managed to get like a Mormon girl. Well, first of all, I asked a Catholic church. I asked St. Thomas, is there anybody from there who can help me just watch the kids and help prepare meals, little things, Oh no, we don't take care of anything like that. So I called my neighbor and I asked her if she knew anyone, Marilyn LeBenz. She says, no, I don't know of anyone, but I know who can help you. She says, I have a neighbor who is Mormon, and they all help one another. So this Mormon family knew of a young Mormon girl who would come over and help me. Well, Karen Julian came over the very next day. She was a 17-year-old girl who was going to Camelback High School. She knocks on the door, I open it up, she says, hi, I'm Karen, I'm here to help you. Well, there wasn't much training to do for her. She knew how to change diapers, she knew how to set a table, she knew how to vacuum, she knew how to keep kids entertained. She just really was well trained, and she helped me so much. So it wouldn't be such a big burden on her. I sent the older kids, Nick, Joanne, and Teresa. I left Mary Ann at home because I figured she was old enough to help Karen. And I left at home also Jennifer and Christina. So I figured it wouldn't be that bad on Karen. So I sent you guys the first week because that was, I figured, well, maybe I'll be a week early. Nothing happened. Then I says, I'll send them another week. Nothing happened. It was just, I was 2 weeks late with Mark. He was due the 14th on his dad's birthday and came the 27th. So in the meantime, they come home every day. We hate the Y. They made us eat soap. We hate it. They teach us terrible songs. YM, YMCA. And they just didn't like it at all. And each time I say, well, you gotta go back, oh, they just, so after I had the baby and everything, then they, stayed home and.
What happened in the beginning? I remember Dad with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Yeah. Explain that, Dad.
Remember when Mom would go to the hospital?
Well, every time Mom had a baby, it was my job to do the cooking. So the only thing I could think of to make that was easy and didn't take a lot of time was peanut butter and jelly. And you kids loved it. But a steady diet of it you didn't like. But you know, we're making a joke out of it. You know, a lot of the friends and families would bring us food
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
too. But that we made a joke out of that. It was fun.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Peanut butter and jelly.
And jelly and peanut butter.
And jelly and peanut. Dad would say, we're gonna have something new tonight. And we'd all cheer, yay! He'd say jelly and peanut butter, not peanut butter and jelly.
We'll never forget that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I remember with each baby that I'd have, Tony Maloof, a good friend of mine, would call up and say, I made you, it was a Arabic pudding with all this nuts and candies on top of it. And she says, tell your husband, come and pick it up. So I'd call you up and I'd tell you, go and pick up the pudding she
was
made
very, very nice.
for every single baby.
She
she'd
was,
make
she
it.
was special.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people, you know, we forget there were a lot of nice people that helped us out. You know, were very happy for us.